Hello, I'm Dr. Scott Wattier.
And I'm Tommy Welling, and you're listening to the Fasting for Life podcast.
This podcast is about using fasting as a tool to regain your health, achieve ultimate wellness, and live the life you truly deserve.
Each episode is a short conversation on a single topic with immediate actionable steps. We cover everything from fat loss and health and wellness to the science of lifestyle design.
We started Fasting for Life because of how fasting has transformed our lives, and we hope to share the tools that we have learned along the way. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fasting for Life podcast. My name is Dr. Scott Wattier, and I am here, as always, with my good friend and colleague, Tommy Welling. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Scott. How are you?
Doing fantastic on this rainy Tuesday evening. As always, super pumped to be here and ready to dive right in.
Yeah, me too. What are we talking about?
Well, that's always the question, right? I feel like our old rule of don't talk about fasting, like the rule of first rule of Fight Club is, so the first rule of Fasting Club is don't talk about fasting, and the second rule is, I feel like we break that rule pretty consistently now.
Well, I agree. Pretty much on a weekly basis, we break it, and I think that's okay because we're in the tree of trust, right? Where we're able to talk about things that we're not normally able to talk about in normal society, right?
Yeah. We talk about Susie from accounting and Bob from IT. The people that have all the answers, the diet pills and the quick fixes and the doctor's advice, but.
Yeah.
We've been there. We have the conversations. Aunt Sally or Susie or Jane or whatever, when you go to the Christmas holiday party and she's on keto, and it's tough to sustain. So the conversation kind of fizzles out, and you're like, all right, well, what can I take from that? With fasting, the cool thing is with the people we've been talking about, I feel like it is gaining momentum, and I'm excited to continue to talk about it because. Just I know we say this all the time, but the feedback, the questions, the comments, the requests, everything is just always like, okay, this is working for me. Like, now what do I do?
Yeah. That's everyone who's reaching out to us seems to be wanting. They're hungry for more. No pun intended. They're looking for the next step. So. Okay, how do I break into the 16-8? How do I break into the 24? Okay, I'm ready to go longer, 48, 72. So we're hearing that as feedback, and we are working on some good answers and recommendations for those and some tools to help you guys get to the next step and keep pushing.
Encouragement at this point would just be to keep doing it. If you guys haven't listened to the episode about the 50 and 50 where Tommy guided me to losing 48.5 pounds in 50 days. And it wasn't anything crazy. It was just consistency over those 50 days. Obviously I had the weight to lose, but I had been trying so hard for years prior. It was just like, whoa, how could this be? So the encouragement is just to keep doing it. If you're at a plateau, there's some things we can help you with, probably some consistency and some little, hidden things that you might not be seeing that might be holding you back, but it's a lot more simple than what we're going to talk about tonight. And I want to lay out kind of the standard. Now, this is coming from somebody in clinical practice that put together, developed, and also used multiple different metabolic and weight loss programs that we would, take patients through the journey, right? Do a workshop, get them fired up, do a competition, a body fat percentage loss or percent body mass loss or weight loss or
before and after pictures.
Yeah. Before and after pictures, weekly weigh-ins. We would do metabolic testing, functional medicine, all, supplements, all of this stuff. And there'd be a lot of short-term success. But then, it would fizzle. Right. And
right. You have a lot of excitement at the beginning, out of the gate, right?
Yeah. But I mean, once you get 30, 60, 90 days in, it's like, oh yeah,
things got tough.
Yeah.
I had a wedding. I had to go out of town.
Came.
Oh, I already had a cruise planned. So,
I fell off the wagon.
Catch you next year, in the year for the next challenge.
I took a break from my diet. Okay. Well, we've been talking a lot more about how life needs to be at the center and the plan needs to kind of support that. So what we're going to talk about tonight is the opposite. This is where the plan becomes the focus, right? And
Okay.
it's not sustainable for the long term. The 12-week mark is, in my opinion, and I don't have a research article to back this up, but long-term studies, like we talked about in previous episode, about the Eat Less, Move More campaign, right? And the five workouts a week, 3 resistance, 2 cardio, do those kind of type programs.
Mm-hmm.
They don't work for people that have insulin resistance, undiagnosed insulin problems, blood sugar issues that are undiagnosed, because that stuff takes so long to show up, right?
Yeah.
That the problem's
Mm-hmm.
been developing for a while, and by the time you realize that you're too far down that path, none of these programs work for you anymore, right? So it's like
Mm-hmm.
you've been trying these year after year after year after year, and you get some results, but then as the years progress, those underlying issues, the insulin, the blood sugar sensitivities, all of that catches up to you, right? You following me here, Tommy?
Yeah, I'm absolutely following. And why do you think 90 days comes up as kind of that big line in the sand? Why does everybody talk about 90 days?
My guess, I mean, I don't know. My guess is probably because people get bored with it. They get
Mm.
some short-term results, and then it kind of plateaus, and that's when they fall back into the old habits, would be my thought.
So
Because I
maybe
know I've done that.
the first month or so, they're getting results, and then through month 2, maybe they're expecting to still see results, but then it slows down, but they're still willing to give it some more time, and then into the 3rd month, it just kind of fizzles out, and they're just done with it.
I think so. And, personal experience here, I visited someone here in Houston. I think I talked about him early on when we did our stories back in the day when we launched this thing.
Mm-hmm.
What smart dude, like super brilliant, well known in the bodybuilding fitness world, a nutrition coach, body fat testing. And I did his programs. And it was about that 3rd month where things would kind of go awry. And I'm just thinking back about now, like, it wasn't that I was indulging more and my finite willpower was running out. It was just my body stopped responding. And I think that's where my frustration came in. Just like before
Yeah.
you told me to stop eating on Father's Day in 2019, not literally stop eating, but start fasting. I had been doing hardcore 6 months, like tracking everything. And I got to that point where it was like the last 3 months. I mean, if you look at it, it was a complete wash. The
Yeah.
ups and downs came right back to that set point that I've been stuck at.
Mm-hmm. I had the same experience too, and I remember reading a couple of books. I can't remember the names. I'll have to find them again. But a couple of books that was like, wow, okay. So they were still doing the same type of thing where you're calculating the macros and you're putting the ratios together. You have a really solid foundation on what your resting metabolic rate is right now and how much of a deficit you need to track down to a certain point, and then you could map out your results and okay, this is going to take 6 months 8 months to lose, let's say, 60 pounds, and then you feel good because you have a lot of calculations behind it and everything looks good and very scientific. But no matter your compliance, with that much weight to lose, usually you're going to start to see those results slow much quicker than you can get to the finish line, and then usually start to just completely fade away, if not kind of reverse on you a little bit, well into the process. And that's what I had to.
Yeah, and so there's a couple of words used in there that I think we need to go into a little bit with the deficit and the macro and those types of things. So we're not going to get too heavy into the numbers tonight. Oh, I hope. Sometimes it happens. I'm not good with math on the fly, but
That's okay.
yeah, thanks. The concept is, yeah, you've had a similar experience, and you are like, so if we were going to put levels of, so you did what you did in terms of getting deep into the details, right? But that comes with your, your degree
Background.
and your background and your experience and all that kind of stuff. So
Sure.
same thing with me, but most people do that by hiring what?
Like a nutrition coach?
A nutrition coach. And I did the same thing. I just told a story about that. Or a macro, or a personal trainer, or,
Sure.
the YouTube school. Like there's something
Yeah.
that they're
Yeah.
using as a reference, and people spent a lot of money on this, just like I have. with all of the testing I did. And a shout out to my amazing um, FDN, Ann Knapp. She's fantastic. She's the one who helped me actually figure out that it was what you told me it was, which was insulin, but I had never just taken the follow-up test
Okay.
to really pinpoint it, because I knew what it was, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what it was. And then when you connected the dots, it all made sense. But Ann's fantastic. Um, and she was my coach for a while because I was looking for help, right? I couldn't figure it
Yeah.
out. So what the problem is that, most of the coaches aren't like what she was doing. They're more like the industry standard, which I'm going to lay out for you here, and then we'll go into it, which is, here's your 90-day plan. Okay. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
work out 5 days a week. We're going to fit into your schedule. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to do 3 days of light resistance training, bands, weights, HIIT, high intensity stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or resistance training, or a mix of both. And then you're going to do a couple of like more low intensity, low and slow cardio days, right?
Right. Seen
And
that
you,
plan 1,000 times. Yep.
yeah, right. I've done it. Heck, I rode 30 half marathons on the rower in 45 days. Like,
Wow.
just, and what did it get me?
I don't know.
Nowhere. Back to my set point. Still being
Okay.
overweight with insulin problems. So,
Right.
and this is right before my daughter, my daughter was born. And I mean, I felt great. My cardiovascular system was great, but like the problem, which was the excess weight, the visceral fat, and the insulin, hadn't gotten any better.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's not that it was useless, but it wasn't getting you to the
Yes.
goal that was most important to you, right?
It got me back to my set point, which is that place that I just couldn't get past. Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So this is where I feel like, to answer your question from before, is that like that 90-day mark, I feel like is like that for most people. So this is kind of the outline of the plan. Week 1, week 2, the scale kind of fluctuates. You lose a few, gain a few, lose a few, gain a few, depending on your, willpower on the weekends and your plans and your social life and what's going on. Right.
Right. And probably actually your carbohydrate level and exactly how much you're eating too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. All right. Yes, of course. Right. I know. You want to get into the numbers. Okay. Hold on.
I'll hold on. Sorry.
Thank you. No, this is great. I can't wait till you drop it. Week 2 to 4 is, you might see a little difference in your, the ease of the workouts you're doing, right? But the scale starts to drop. Okay.
Okay.
Probably not to the quickness or the speed that you're expecting, but it's going down increments. You're seeing it. You're feeling good. Feel a little bit different in the gym, a little stronger, right?
Right.
Week 4 to 6. So we're like kind of at that just over a month period. Clothes start to fit a little different. You start seeing some changes, right? In the mirror. Do not use the gym mirrors. I swear those are like circus mirrors. The lighting, right? Like all the, what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then week 7 to 9.
Fitting room mirrors. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Buy these clothes. They make you look fantastic.
So that the end of that second month, others start noticing changes, right? And they're like, oh, wow, you look different. And then the last 2 weeks, so that 10 to 12 week is kind of where, most people will hit that plateau, right? And most people think, okay, well, the scale's not moving. The mirror's really not changing. So what am I doing here? So it's a very few people that can get to that point with those results and say, okay, you know what? It's just going to take more time.
Yeah, just keep pushing past.
And there are some people that can do that.
Yeah, or even do more.
Yeah, or do more if there's no underlying metabolic issue. Sure. Insulin resistance, undiagnosed blood sugar problems, hormone imbalances, et cetera, et cetera. So let's get into the numbers. Here we go.
Yeah, and just to further your last point, that just means that you didn't have as much to lose, or you haven't been holding on to this excess weight for very long, or like you said, you don't have these underlying metabolic issues, which means that you would go through the process of getting back to your ideal body weight much faster anyway. And so it may not even take the full 90 days. And if that's the case, that's great. And you might find where you need to go. But for many of us, here and who are interested in the topic, that's just not going to be the case.
And the underlying thing here is simplification and long term, right? So
yeah,
that you're going through this and you get the results, and I've done this for years. And you get to that bottom set point, right? That muscle memory of your hormones and insulin, and your body goes, okay, I'm good here. And then you get below it, you force yourself past it, and you lose a little bit more, and then your body goes, homeostasis. I don't want that to happen. Let's get back up to that old set point and just add a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the calorie deficit, right, that you mentioned earlier. So typically one of these programs that we just laid out, right, that 12-week program is based on a daily caloric deficit. Now we're talking about weight loss or fat loss here. More specifically for us, we want fat loss, right?
Sure.
Because the scale can fluctuate day to day based on hydration and short-term glucose, glycogen in the liver, et cetera.
How much sleep did you have? What time did you eat dinner? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Haven't used the restroom, all that kind of stuff. So the 300 to 500 calorie deficit is kind of standard depending on how quickly you set your goals, right? So we're going to do the more aggressive here. Let's say a 500 calorie deficit, right?
Okay.
And if you look at the 500 calorie deficit, that's, for an average male, that's about 1/5 of your daily consumption, right?
Yeah. And then for average female, about 1/4. Yep.
Right. So that's in a 24-hour time period, right?
Okay.
Okay. This is where I tend to get a little tripped up because I'm not good with days and calendars. So this is where you came in.
Okay. I'm ready.
So take it for a week's worth to that point of like, okay, what you can do in a day versus what it would take you to do in a week, I think is how you explain it to me.
Yeah. So if we were at, let's just take the male example, 2,500 calories, and we did a 500 calorie deficit every single day, and we did that over a week, then we're at 3,500 calories for the week. So that's good. That's roughly equivalent to 1 pound of fat, right? Okay.
Yep.
So
sorry, I was nodding and I forgot that this was an audio medium. So continue.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
So if we did 3,500 calories every single week, and we multiplied that over a 12-week period, if we were on a 90-day program, then we have 12 pounds of fat loss, theoretically, right there.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's okay. I don't know if it's going to be enough to keep you motivated and pushing all throughout 1/4 of the year, depending on what your goals are. I mean, if your goals are 15 pounds, then you're most of the way there. If your goal's 40 pounds or 140, it's going to be a while.
So let's talk about the differences then because intermittent fasting is a hot topic right now, right? So when you say, oh yeah, I'm fasting, and somebody's like, yeah, I fast for 12 hours. I'm like, huh? What does that mean? So typically the fasting window is 16-8, right? So you don't eat for 16 and you eat, let's say, between noon and 8 p.m.
Okay.
And then there's, 18-6, which would be just a shorter eating window, and then a 24 or a 5-2. We typically like to do
warrior diet.
And the warrior, OMAD, which is 1 meal a day, which is that 24-hour mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does it look like in terms of those numbers if we do OMAD for an entire week?
Okay, so if we did OMAD for a week,
so typical, 1 meal, like in 1 hour eating window, you eat dinner to dinner, breakfast to breakfast, lunch to lunch.
So if we're continuing with our male, our 2,500 calorie a day male, let's just call it 800 calories for that 1 meal. So times 7 days, and so we're at 5,600 calories, whereas normally we would have been at 17,500. So we're at 11,900 calorie deficit,
which is how many pounds of fat?
About 3.4 pounds of fat calorie deficit.
So in 1 week, let's just call it calories, right? So in 1 week, you've now hit, you said 4 pounds?
3.4.
3.4. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So 1/4 of the 90 days you just achieved in 1 week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a 4 times. Am I doing this right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing it right. The math doesn't lie.
And that's at 800 calories. Let's say even if you did 1,000 calories, it'd still be like 3.
Yeah, like 3 pounds.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And here's the other thing. Here's the kicker, though. Because I've heard people say the keto flu. You've heard that term before?
I've
Keto
had
flu.
it.
Okay, so I've had it too. I remember when I did keto. I remember exactly where I was when I figured out what this idea was, and it sounded just so life changing to me. And so I did it, and I eventually had the keto flu. I got some of the keto strips, and so the keto flu basically is your body releasing all of the stored glucose, all the stored glycogen. So we typically hang on to about a day's worth of calories as glycogen, which is just sugars all packed together in the liver and the muscle.
Short
Um,
term, like, right? Like short term.
yeah, we can use it really quickly, and we have about 24 hours worth. So we have somewhere between 2,000, 3,000 calories worth of glycogen. So as we get rid of it, and then we shift over to fat metabolism, which is where we want to be to burn fat, um, that transition, if you're in a calorie deficit or you're doing something like a ketogenic diet, will be prolonged. It may take between 12 hours and 3 days to actually get through that period of time to make that transition. That's why they call it the keto flu, because it feels like I kind of feel like I have the flu. But when
Yeah,
you
typically 72 hours, you're like, okay, I feel better. The food's gone.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's gone because you've fully switched over to fat metabolism. Now you're still in a deficit and you're burning the fat. So your body's good. It's good to go. But when you get there through fasting, it's a much quicker shift because you don't have all those additional calories coming in while your body's actually trying to make the shift. So the shift happens much quicker, and it can happen in a matter of 4 hours instead of 24 or 48 hours. So that's an additional 5 pounds, 4 to 5 pounds that typically comes off in the first day or day and a half of fasting versus a program like what you're describing.
And that's the amazing part too, is that you're like, we talk through this stuff and we look at the numbers and we calculate and we research and we're like, okay, wait a minute. Is this real? Yeah. And it makes sense because everybody that does this with us, I don't like to use absolutes. Almost all the people that do this with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
That stick to it, like our weekly challenge that we did, right? The 2020 Vision Challenge back
Oh
in
yeah,
February. Um, all everybody in that group that reported results back to us just described in 1 week what you just laid out in terms
yeah.
of numbers.
Pretty much like 4 to 10 pounds. Well, no, I think we had somebody who was at like 12 pounds in that first week. I think he had a lot to lose, but
Right.
yeah, some fantastic weeks in there.
Right. So let's extrapolate this out and give some. So my thought is then, okay, well, this is 1 week, right? So if we're comparing this to 12-week program, let's do this for 4 weeks. Now, it's not going to be that accelerated in the beginning, just based on what you just explained. But what it really does is it simplifies all of the things like this. I need to eat 200 grams of protein, 80 grams of fat, and no, 200 grams of carbs, 80 grams of fat, right? And 120 grams of protein a day.
If you say so.
Right. That's a macro, right? That's a macro
Yep.
breakdown. You get to weigh stuff, you get to measure stuff, you get to upload, right?
What happens with that? That's a magic formula you have?
So another one that I hear a lot too is a standard calculation for if you want to gain mass, if you want to
Okay.
maintain, or if you want to have fat loss. And some of the equations out there, it's just like everything else. There's two sides to an argument or a discussion. But 12 times your body weight for fat loss, right, with the workout program and the change, or 15 times your body weight for maintenance calories, or 17 times your body weight for mass gain if you're trying to lose weight. So this would be someone like my wife's brother, who can eat anything and just stays thin, right? I look
Okay.
at pizza and it goes to my visceral fat, right? It increases my chances of cardiovascular disease. So
Right.
if we're looking at that 12 times body weight, right? So right now, my lowest was 197. Right now I'm at 210, just under 210, right? So 40 pounds of loss total, maintained for over just coming up on a year. So if we did the 12 times my body weight, what was that number again? Do you remember? So the
Hold on a
whole
second.
point of this is I ate, if
25,
I
20.
2520, if I ate 2,500 calories a day, guess what the scale would start doing?
Yeah, I think it's going to start ticking up.
Yeah, and everybody's like, no, no, that won't happen. I'm like, no, but it does. Like
Yeah.
it goes through back to this. The scale fluctuates. You feel a little bit better. Your cardiovascular improves. Your strength might improve. Your clothes fit a little different, and then tick, 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 tick. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in a perfect world, it would make sense. So macros. That's what I said. These equations, yes. Reverse dieting, you know, cycling, refeeding, all of that stuff can work, right? For a small subset of people that can stick
Yeah.
to it, that have the genetic predisposition to do it, that don't have any underlying issues. But what we want to do is simplify, simplify, simplify.
Yeah. Those equations fail to take into account anyone looking to lose more than, I mean,
12, 15 pounds, maybe.
yeah, maybe even 20. But like once you get beyond that, it's just you're talking about such a long period of time that the insulin resistance matters, the set point matters, and the amount of time matters, the momentum matters. Because if you're talking about hoping to lose 1 pound per week, which sounds exciting when you first start, but then I mean the sheen just wears off of that really quickly. I mean, if you're still losing 1 pound a week by week 6, first of all, you're probably lucky to still be getting the results at that time. But are you still motivated, and have you already avoided a wedding or a celebration or a vacation at that point? Or are you about to? Do you have something coming up on the horizon where you know that's just kind of going to be the end point for the momentum, right?
So is the plan dictating your life, or is your life at the center and then you put the plan around it, right? It's
Right.
that same thing that we keep coming back to, that everyone else, excuse me, would say, okay, you're at this point, just wait. It simply takes time.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're like, no, let's simplify it and speed up that time, right?
Yeah.
Let's get those results, get to maintenance, and then just be there, right? Rather than this constant uphill battle.
Yeah. And it's like they try to scare you out of taking the faster track. Like, no, you can't just stop eating. That's crazy. Well, I'm not going to stop eating forever, but I'm going to stop eating strategically. I don't have to just reduce my meals by a few bites to get results that don't end up, hashing out anyway. Like I can do it a different way.
And that, intermittent fasting too. I mean, that's some of the downfall. People will try and it works for short term. And, if you have the things we've talked about or the situations we've talked about, and you can relate to that up and down yo-yo type feeling, then
Mm-hmm.
you need to be a little bit more aggressive, right? You need to do a
Yeah.
consistent few weeks of one meal a day. And I promise you that after one or two of them, you're like, why have I not been doing this the rest of my life? I have a good friend in Florida. Why have I
Right.
not been doing this my entire life? And yes, I'm going to continue doing this the rest of my life.
Yeah.
A great friend in Florida, he's the lowest he's been, right, in a long time, right? I can't remember how long, but I'm going to say like high school or maybe pre-wedding, right? And they've been together for
Okay.
20
Yeah.
years.
Wow. It's cool.
And
It's awesome.
um, he's doing pretty much one meal a day with every now and then a 48. And he's like, yeah, man, when I start traveling again, I can take this with me on the road and still get results, where before I didn't have that option, because when my schedule changed, the plan changed. Well,
Yeah.
now the
It's
plan is just stick to it and simplify, and you've got it. Like, you've regained control.
Yeah, he has all the control in the world. It's awesome.
Yeah. So a couple other benefits here, because I was making some notes while you were chatting, explaining the things that I couldn't
Rattling
explain.
off numbers.
Yeah,
Okay.
rattling off numbers. Yeah, you know what I was talking about. So, intermittent fasting also has other benefits. People always ask these questions. Well, you got increased human growth hormone, right? So that's fat burning, fat
Mm-hmm.
burning and muscle building. Never mind all of the other positive effects, right? decrease insulin, decrease blood sugar. So you're decreasing your chance of diabetes and cardiovascular issues. It's almost like it's like a life hack, right? And people
Yeah.
think, well, if you stop eating, then your metabolism slows down. The opposite actually happens,
Nope.
right? I think it was by day 3 or 4, I can't remember, that the episode we did, you have a 10 times spike in HGH and you have a 15% spike in metabolism,
Yep.
right? And it's just, and the opposite is do the 12-week plan, right? The scale will fluctuate. You'll start seeing results. You'll hit a plateau, but long-term calorie restriction, right, is shown to slow down your body's ability to burn, right? If your car is running out of gasoline, you don't put more gas in it or put more fuel in it, it's going to stop, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's essentially like the equivalent of that versus just having a battery in complete backup, but not running on both, but just switching from one to the other. I mean, that's the switch from the sugar metabolism to the fat metabolism.
Right.
Our body does not like to tiptoe. It doesn't like to go back and forth, 1 foot in sugar, 1 foot in fat. It can't do it. So it needs to switch over. That's why you have that keto flu. That's why you feel differently when you're burning your fat. It needs to be fully in that mode and stay in that mode, and the results come naturally.
One of the things you said to me too was, even just in a 24-hour fast, you're able to take pressure and intensity off of your cardiovascular system just by the effects of the diuresis and the clearing out of the short-term glycogen, right? So, people say, oh, I fast, I get headaches, or, we've talked about this, have some salt, have some trace minerals. There might be a small electrolyte balance, but what you're feeling is that change in the blood volume. And you're literally like taking pressure off of your cardiovascular system because you have less volume floating around your body. The benefits of this are innumerable. What I really want to make sure that we hit, and you are usually the guy who can do this and land the plane, as we like to say. It's becoming a running theme. And we haven't talked about this before, and typically we have an outcome for each episode. We want to make it conversational. We want to have one action step from here that you can do and take and, put into your day-to-day. And it's not fire your personal trainer or your macro coach or whatnot. It's not that, right? It's if you're not getting the results, let's look in the mirror and kind of say, okay, well, am I willing to do 1 meal a day? If you can do 1 meal a day for a week, and at the end of that week, you come back and tell me, or us, or send us a message and say, yeah, didn't work for me. I would be hard pressed to find someone that would do that, right?
Yeah, we've never heard it, and I would be really interested to hear the story behind why 1 meal a day didn't work. Whether it was from willpower or schedule conflicts or date nights.
Yeah, bad planning, bad psychology.
Yeah. Or I didn't see the results. I didn't get anything out of it. There is literally, I can't think of a single valid thing that would come through as a response. So if you guys are out there and you're ready for a challenge and you've never done 1 meal a day, go do it. Download the Fast Start Guide and start 1 meal a day. And we challenge you. If it doesn't work, send us a note and we'll read it, because I'd love to hear why it didn't work. Because I think I would be willing to say that it would work for anybody who tried it.
I agree. And I'm not like here's the magic diet pill that's going to, trap your carbohydrates and not allow them to be absorbed in the body, right? Like that stuff. I'm honestly I would be shocked, right? I'd be like, well, no, how is that not possible? Because the numbers, unless you went completely off the rails and were taking insulin and had all of these other issues, then yeah, maybe it might not work.
Sure.
But the numbers would make that you would see the difference. And we're not talking about anything drastic. You've skipped meals in the past. Think back. You've traveled. Right. You haven't been able to find something. Your mom made something you didn't like to eat. Whatever it is, it's happened. So let's stick to just a week. Like Tommy said, download the Fast Start Guide and try it for 7 days.
Yeah, take the mini masterclass. If you are having any trouble with any of the questions in the Fast Start Guide, do that. Send us an email. Send us a contact request, and let us know if you're struggling or if there's something that you're just not quite sure of, and we're happy to help.
Cool. Keep the questions coming too, because we did a couple of Q&As recently. We want to do more. We got just great feedback about those because so many people, oh, I had the same question. Oh, I had this. Oh, I thought the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're compiling another list of those. And I'm also working on a list of testimonials too. And I'm just sifting through and I'm finding just threads of the same thoughts. So there's never a bad question. If you've got a question, send it to us. Keep them coming. We're going to do some more Q&As coming up. Download the Fast Start Guide. Log into the free mini master class. Give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcasts. Tommy, I appreciate you, brother. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, you too. See you later. Bye. So, you've heard today's episode, and you may be wondering, where do I start? Head on over to thefastingforlife.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive fasting tips and strategies to maximize results and fit fasting into your day-to-day life.
While you're there, download your free Fast Start Guide to get started today. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, and we'll be back next week with another episode of Fasting for Life.